In Birch Lake Gardens, getting more than 12 likes on a neighborhood post is basically a felony. I got 93, and not with a baby picture, a dog in costume, or some baked zucchini nonsense. No, I got 93 likes with a photo of freshly cut grass. That's how I became public enemy #1 before I even learned half the street names. My name's Mason Holloway. I'm 62, retired radio host, new to Birch Lake and too old to care about digital drama. But apparently my weed whacker triggered a full-blown suburban coup. I posted a simple before and after of the front yard. The before was a jungle, patchy wild, looked like the previous owners had fought a losing war against nature. The after? Manicured, edged, mulched. Nothing crazy, just clean and intentional. The caption? Finally settling in, loving the neighborhood. That's it. But apparently that was enough to unseat a throne. Leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. If you love wild, true-feeling stories packed with twists, justice, and just the right amount of HOA chaos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow's story is even more jaw-dropping, and trust me, the surprise is coming next. You won't want to miss them. Now, I didn't know at the time that a woman named Evelyn Sharp ran our HOA's social page like it was Buckingham Palace. She had crowned herself Birch Lake's compliance czar, self-appointed, unchallenged, and heavily moisturized. Evelyn posted weekly on topics like shrub height, bin etiquette, and the dangers of unsanctioned lawn ornaments. Each post got 6 likes, usually from the same core group, Carol, Janice, and a guy named Kurt, who might be her cousin. But when I posted my little yard glow-up, strangers I hadn't even met commented with praise, emojis, and offers to lend me their leaf blower. Mrs. Mendoza from 3 houses down invited me to Sunday brunch. Someone even asked for my landscaper's number. That's when I started to feel it, the shift. Because across the street, behind tinted windows and a scowl polished to perfection, Evelyn Sharp was watching those likes rise like steam from a boiling kettle. The first bin incident happened exactly a week later. Tuesday morning, 7:30 IMing, the HOA's unofficial witching hour. I was in the kitchen pouring coffee when I heard the unmistakable sound of plastic dying violently. Walked outside, and there it was. My trash bin flattened across the driveway like roadkill. Garbage scattered in every direction like a raccoon's birthday party. And 20 feet down the street, Evelyn's silver Lexus SUV idling like it had nothing to do with the massacre. She rolled down the window and called out, "Oops, looks like that bin was a bit close to the curb, neighbor." I walked over, still in slippers, coffee in hand, thinking, all right, maybe it was just a mistake. I apologized, told her I'd check the HOA guidelines on bin placement. She gave me a tight smile and said, "I suggest page 11, paragraph 4. Then drove off, like she'd just issued a parking citation in a war zone. I did check the guidelines later, by the way. My bin was exactly 18 inches from the curb, right on the dot. The second crash came 3 days later. This time I was watching. Same time, same SUV, same passive-aggressive demolition derby. Evelyn swerved right into the bin with just enough force to send it rolling into the neighbor's flower bed, then got out like a crime scene investigator, snapping photos like she'd just discovered illegal dumping. I stepped outside, deadpan as a statue, and asked, "Should I be expecting a citation or a performance review?" She didn't laugh, just muttered something about safety concerns, and jogged back to her car, posting the whole thing in the HOA group an hour later with the caption, "Unsecured trash continues to pose risks to community harmony." 8 likes, 2 concerned comments, and a gif of a raccoon nodding solemnly. That's when it clicked. Evelyn wasn't just annoyed, she was threatened. My little yard post had upstaged her entire reign of HOE influence, and now she was trying to turn my garbage into her comeback tour. By the 3rd hit, I was ready. I'd angled my security cam, poured my coffee early, and pulled up a front row seat. And just like a sitcom on syndication, the show started right on schedule. Her SUV rolled down the lane, slowed slightly, then, bam, my bin launched like it owed her money. But this time, Evelyn upped the theatrics. She exited the car, crouched next to my spilled coffee filters and banana peels like she was filming a documentary for the Discovery Channel. She even pulled out her phone and started live streaming. "Good morning, Birch Lake," she said, holding up a yogurt lid like evidence. Just another example of why community standards matter. I stood on my porch, sipping my brew, watching her narrate my garbage like it was an endangered species. Then came the kicker. Frank, my next-door neighbor, opened his blinds and shook his head. He's a retired pilot with surveillance cams that would make the Pentagon jealous. He leaned out and called, "You know, Mason, you've got the first trash bin in history to get paparazzi coverage." That's when I realized something. This wasn't just about rules or bins or HOA pride. It was about attention, control, likes, comments, digital applause. Evelyn needed an enemy, and apparently I had the misfortune of being the most interesting thing to happen to Birch Lake since the squirrel migration of 2019. But unlike those squirrels, I wasn't going to scatter. I had spent decades on the radio learning how to handle public meltdowns, slow burns, and loud egos. So I decided right then, if she wanted a narrative, I'd give her one. But not the one she was expecting, because sometimes the best way to beat the Queen of Clean is to let her keep digging while you quietly install a mirror at the bottom of the hole. The fourth hit wasn't subtle. Evelyn's SUV clipped my trash bin with the confidence of someone who believed the curb was in her jurisdiction. The thing flew like it had dreams of joining Cirque du Soleil. It landed sideways in my driveway, trailing banana peels and a sad trail of yesterday's junk mail. I stepped outside just in time to catch Evelyn hopping out in full HOA patrol mode, phone already recording. She didn't even flinch. "Another unsafe placement," she muttered to the camera, zooming in on a spilled yogurt lid like it was a felony. I waved. She didn't wave back. I thought to myself, she's not documenting this for the HOA anymore. She's producing a mini-series called Trash Justice, The Fall of Birch Lake. The way she panned her camera, you'd think she was submitting evidence to the Supreme Court, and I realized right then we weren't neighbors anymore. We were rivals on a suburban battlefield, and my recycling bin was the first casualty. That afternoon, Grant dropped by with a flash drive and a smirk. 3 angles, time-stamped, zoomed, labeled, he said, sipping his lemon tea like a man watching the beginning of a slow-motion car chase. Grant is 74, retired Air Force pilot, and the proud owner of more cameras than the local police department. His footage showed Evelyn veering ever so slightly toward my bin. No brake, no hesitation, just a gentle bump with the front fender, followed by a dramatic pause to assess the mess. She stood there in her yoga pants and HOA windbreaker like she was about to read the Miranda rights to a pile of paper towels. "She's not even subtle anymore," I said. "At this point, I should just put a GoFundMe on the lid." Grant laughed, but only a little. Because as funny as it looked, there was something deeply weird about a grown woman building a digital paper trail out of my trash. 2 days later, she escalated. This time she showed up in full reflective gear, safety vest, clipboard, measuring wheel, a level. I watched from my porch in silent awe as she roped off my trash zone with orange cones and staked a cardboard sign in the ground that read, "Temporary Hazard Zone, Inspection in Progress." It looked like a FEMA drill, minus the federal funding. She began narrating for her live stream, yes, live stream, saying things like, "Recurring violations detected, community hazard assessment underway." She zoomed in on a flattened cereal box like it was evidence in a cold case. "We've got failure of containment, integrity, and dispersal risk." She actually said dispersal risk. I didn't know whether to laugh or call the National Guard. Grant joined me on the porch, holding a thermos. "She's doing angles now," he said, nodding toward the protractor dangling from her clipboard. "This woman's staging a Broadway revival of Bin Miserables." Now, I've seen a lot in life, hosted radio during 3 hurricanes and a studio fire, but watching a woman livestream a yogurt cup under caution tape was a new level of surreal, and it would have stayed ridiculous if it weren't for what happened next. 8-year-old Logan from 2 doors down came chasing a rogue soccer ball into the scene. The cones didn't stop him. The hazard zone sign didn't register. He was just a kid trying to get his ball back. Evelyn turned on him like he'd kicked the ball into a crime scene. "This is exactly the danger I've been warning about," she barked, camera now aimed directly at the child. Logan froze. He looked back at his ball, then at Evelyn, and took a half-step backward, like she was about to issue a warrant. That's when his mom, Jenna, came running down the driveway. "Excuse me, why are you filming my son?" she asked. Not shouting, just low and cold. Evelyn, still rolling, said, "Ma'am, I'm documenting a safety violation involving minor exposure." Jenna didn't blink. "Turn off the camera. Delete that footage. Now." Evelyn hesitated. Logan's lip quivered. I stood up and started walking over, but Jenna had it handled. She stepped between her son and Evelyn like a linebacker in yoga pants and said, "One more second of this and you'll be explaining your live stream to a school district lawyer." Evelyn turned pale. She fumbled with her phone and ended the stream. Logan grabbed his ball and ran for the house. Jenna gave me a tight smile as she walked back. "I swear, Mason, the woman needs a hobby that doesn't involve cones." I nodded. Maybe she can catalog loose squirrels next. It was funny, but not funny, because that moment changed the tone in the neighborhood. What had been quirky and overbearing turned into something else, something uninvited, intrusive, and deeply off-putting. Evelyn had crossed a line, and this time it wasn't just with my trash. Later that evening, I checked the HOA group page. Evelyn had posted her edited footage, just the inspection part, with dramatic music and voiceover commentary. She didn't include the part with Logan or Jenna, of course. The post read, "Ongoing vigilance is required. Safety is everyone's responsibility." It got 4 likes, Carol, Dan, and Carol's second account. But beneath the post were 2 new comments. "Please stop filming our children," and "This is getting uncomfortable." The tide was turning and she didn't see it. Grant and I watched her replay on the security feed. We zoomed in, frame by frame, on her expressions, how focused she looked when filming, how agitated when Jenna confronted her. "She really thinks she's saving this place," I said. Grant replied, "She's turning it into a live-action HOA horror film." And for the first time, I started to believe Evelyn wasn't just petty. She was addicted to the role of enforcer, no matter the cost. The next morning, I woke up to find laminated flyers taped to 3 mailboxes. They were titled "Community Concern, Pattern of Violations," and they included blurry screenshots of my bin area with annotations and timestamps. One circle was drawn around a napkin. Another arrow pointed to a toppled milk jug. "Is this the neighborhood we want?" it asked. Grant got one too. So did Jenna. It was spreading. Her campaign of chaos was evolving. Less Facebook, more printed propaganda. I kept my copy. I wasn't mad. If anything, I admired the commitment. But it told me something valuable. She wasn't going to stop. She was doubling down, convinced she was protecting civilization from my waste management. And the more she pushed, the more the neighborhood shifted. What started as chuckles was becoming concern. What felt like eccentricity now felt like harassment. And Evelyn, for all her planning and production, had forgotten one very simple law of community. You can't keep poking people and expect them to stay quiet. So I didn't stay quiet. I didn't go loud either. I went smart. I started organizing. Not protests, not complaints, just evidence. Calm, clear, time-stamped proof. I knew what she was planning before she did. Because Evelyn needed chaos to stay relevant. She needed conflict to stay in control, and she didn't know that I'd already started building something better. A new kind of HOA spotlight. One that didn't involve cones, confrontation, or yogurt cup investigations. Think that was wild? Oh, we're just getting warmed up. Evelyn's not done, not even close. And the next move she makes? Let's just say it involves clipboards, caution tape, and a live audience she wasn't expecting. If you're loving this ride through HOA madness, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and drop a comment to let us know what HOA drama you've survived. You won't believe what happens in part 3, because when the neighborhood fights back, the real fun begins. She brought cones, a clipboard, and a drone. I thought she was FEMA. Turned out she was just bored. Evelyn's latest HOA spectacle took place at exactly 7:34 a.m. on a Friday. I was on my porch with Grant, sipping coffee, when we saw her pulling up in full tactical regalia, reflective vest, field journal, fold-out warning signs, and something strapped to her wrist that looked suspiciously like a GoPro remote. She surveyed my curb like a general preparing for combat. Then, without shame or irony, she deployed 4 orange cones around my trash bin, taped off the sidewalk with caution ribbons she clearly bought in bulk, and launched a drone straight into the sky. "This ain't a trash dispute anymore," Grant muttered. "This is theater." I nodded. The HOA wasn't just being watched, it was being directed. I didn't fight back with words, I fought back with editing software. That night I posted a video compilation, Evelyn's Worst Parking Jobs. Shots of her double parking in front of the community center, straddling the coffee shop curb, blocking the hydrant on Maple Lane, all set to smooth jazz with the caption, "Parking like you mean it." A compliance officer's masterclass. It wasn't malicious, just funny, and Birchlake laughed with me. The comments rolled in. "That's my mailbox in the background. Finally, someone said it." Even Angela Moon, the HOA president, who hadn't commented on anything in 6 months, left a laughing emoji. Evelyn didn't. She posted a reply an hour later accusing certain residents of cyberbullying and targeted surveillance. But by then, the tone had shifted. People weren't scared of her anymore. They were entertained by her, and not in the way she wanted. The next morning, Evelyn escalated. She issued what she called a community trash safety bulletin on the HOA page. It read like an emergency weather alert. Due to ongoing hazards associated with improper bin practices, a temporary monitoring zone will be established along Maple Street. She set up again cones, signs, even what looked like a homemade hazard map duct taped to her SUV. This time she carried a megaphone, I swear, a megaphone. She was walking the sidewalk, narrating observations about debris patterns and pedestrian risk factors. I filmed her from my porch, speechless. Grant leaned over and said, "You think she's ever been in a real emergency? 'Cause she's acting like FEMA's backup squad." And then right on cue, a golden retriever strolled into the scene and lifted its leg on one of her cones. I nearly dropped my coffee. But the internet has a sense of humor and no mercy. Someone screen-recorded her megaphone trash audit, added dramatic subtitles, and turned it into a meme. The caption, "When HOA goes CIA." The video hit the local Facebook groups within hours. Suddenly, Evelyn wasn't the voice of Birchlake order, she was the punchline. Still, she didn't stop. 2 days later, she launched another inspection, this time adding a printed flyer with community awareness tips, which included a QR code linking to her private HOA blog. But this time, she was interrupted. Again. Little Kayla, 6 years old, big glasses, tutu over sweatpants, came skipping through her taped-off hazard zone, chasing soap bubbles from her dad's front porch machine. Evelyn stepped into her path, arms out like a mall cop. Kayla froze. Then her mom, Rachel, appeared faster than you could say cease and desist. "Evelyn," she said, "get out of my daughter's face or I'll show you a real violation." And just like that, Evelyn's performance unraveled. Again, she tried to explain, but Rachel wasn't having it. "Don't talk to my kid. Don't film her. Don't speak at her like she's the problem when all she did was chase a bubble." Evelyn backed down, eyes darting toward her drone like it might save her. It didn't. Grant, who was filming from across the street, whispered, "You think this is her villain origin story, or just the third act of a slow-motion meltdown?" I shrugged. "If it is, we're about one banana peel away from the climax." That night, Angela Moon sent out a formal message to all residents, reminding them of privacy laws, consent rules, and the official complaint process. Emphasis on official. It didn't name Evelyn, but it didn't have to. The message was clear, the HOA had seen enough footage. But Evelyn hadn't. she doubled down. Again, posted a new video titled Trash Watch, Maple Street Exposé. Only 3 people watched it. One of them was Grant. The second was probably Carol. The third was me, laughing quietly in my kitchen while Evelyn narrated over a blurry video of a tipped-over bin like it was a military scandal. The comment section was dead silent. Birchlake had moved on. I hadn't posted anything since the jazz parking video, and still my reputation was holding. Evelyn, on the other hand, was spiraling. Every post of hers got fewer likes. Every performance got more eye rolls. She didn't realize it yet, but her algorithm was working against her. She was feeding it chaos, and it was burying her in it. So I kept watching, kept waiting. Because the bigger the show, the harder the crash. And trust me, her next one was going to be unforgettable. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens when Evelyn Sharp turns HOA enforcement into her own public undoing. There's a fine line between order and obsession. Evelyn crossed it in a reflective vest, dragging a rolling cart with folders labeled Incident Reports and a banner that read Birchlake Safety Committee, established for the greater good. I knew we were in trouble when she recruited Carol Jenkins to be her second-in-command. Carol, who once got winded tying balloons for the spring social, now walked around with a clipboard like she was auditing FEMA. Neither of them had HOA authority, but that didn't stop them. They were self-declared, self-funded, and self-important. Their mission? Monitor behavior, catalog infractions, keep Birchlake accountable. Grant called it HOA cosplay. I called it prelude to a lawsuit. Their first project was a series of community safety profiles. Evelyn went full Big Brother, taking candid photos of residents mowing their lawns, walking their dogs, or, God forbid, placing their trash bins a half-inch off-center. She'd attach captions like, lawn under surveillance, pet zone lacks perimeter, or behavioral pattern non-compliant. The profiles were printed, laminated, and slid under mailboxes like passive-aggressive valentines. I got 3 in 1 week. One showed me sipping coffee on my porch. Caption, non-engaged during trash activity, possible evasion. Another was of Grant leaning over his fence, unverified oversight role, possible enabler. We didn't know whether to laugh or call Homeland Security. Then came the minor risk alerts. Evelyn actually created reports on neighborhood children. One featured Kayla skipping rope too close to the storm drain. Another showed Logan playing tag without visible supervision. And then it happened. Evelyn posted a photo of 8-year-old Miles sitting on his front step with a note underneath, unsupervised child during school hours, elevated risk for mischief. That was the last straw. His mother, Dana, stormed onto the HOA forum like a thundercloud in yoga pants. "You do not have permission to photograph my child," she wrote. "You are not law enforcement, and if I see another profile, I will involve actual authorities." The post got 54 likes in 2 hours. Evelyn's response? Community care requires community courage. That was the last thing she said before the inboxes lit up. By the end of that week, 7 formal complaints had been submitted to Angela Moon, the actual HOA president. I know, because Angela called me personally. "Mason," she said, "do you have video proof of Evelyn filming children?" I didn't even have to answer. Grant had already dropped off a flash drive titled, "Bin Queen Goes Full Orwell." Angela sighed. "Okay, I've seen enough." She drafted a formal notice for an emergency town hall-style meeting to address what she diplomatically called behavioral concerns impacting community harmony. The invite went out via email, text, and printed flyer. The meeting would be held in the Thompsons' backyard under the big oak tree. I couldn't tell if I was excited or nervous. Maybe both. Birchlake doesn't usually do confrontation, but this was no longer HOA drama. This was a neighborhood uproar. 27 households showed up. Some brought lawn chairs. Others stood with arms crossed like they were expecting a confession. Angela opened with a calm voice but firm posture. "We are here because something that should have been minor became disruptive and, frankly, invasive. Then she asked, "Does anyone have experiences they'd like to share?" The silence lasted 5 seconds. Then Dana raised her hand and said, "Evelyn posted photos of my son and called it community protect. From there, it turned into a domino of grievances. Jenna talked about the time Evelyn accused her of dishonest shrub trimming. Rachel recalled the sidewalk incident with Kayla. Even Carol Jenkins, her reluctant second-in-command, stood up and admitted, 'I thought we were just checking bins. I didn't know she was building surveillance files.' That's when everyone really leaned in, because Carol had turned, and that meant Evelyn was officially alone. But Evelyn didn't back down. She stood, dusted off her clipboard, and marched up to the front like she was testifying before Congress. 'I did what no one else was willing to do,' she said. 'I monitored. I documented. I protected our standards.' She looked around like she expected applause. None came. Angela cleared her throat. 'Evelyn, protecting standards does not mean filming children. It doesn't mean profiling residents. It doesn't mean playing enforcement officer without board approval.' Evelyn's lips quivered, but she held her ground. 'If no one defends this neighborhood, it falls apart.' I finally spoke. 'Evelyn, this neighborhood didn't fall apart until your cones showed up.' That got a few laughs, but it wasn't about roasting her anymore. It was about ending the spiral. Angela closed the meeting with grace. 'From this point on,' she said, 'no resident may distribute materials, photograph others, or conduct any form of monitoring without written HOA approval. Violators will face sanctions, including removal from committees and formal notice to vacate roles.' It was gentle but firm, the HOA equivalent of a cease and desist wrapped in a smile. Evelyn didn't speak again. She picked up her clipboard, turned, and walked out of the Thompson yard like a rejected pageant contestant. But the message was clear, and so was the shift in the neighborhood. Birchlake had finally pushed back, and as Grant said later that night, raising his glass on the porch, "Sometimes it takes a village to deal with one delusional villager." And if you think that was dramatic, wait till you see what happens when Evelyn tries to win them all back. Hit that subscribe button now, because in next part, she goes from overbearing to unhinged. And Birchlake's not having it. She hit my bin 21 times, but her final hit was her own ego. The HOA board had made it official. Evelyn Sharp was removed from all roles. No more compliance officer, no more safety committee, no more community coordinator, though I'm not sure that title ever really existed outside her head. But like any dethroned monarch who refuses to abdicate with dignity, Evelyn didn't go quietly. First, she announced a neighborhood healing BBQ in her front yard. Flyers went out, banners went up, lawn chairs were arranged with the precision of a military send-off. Only problem? No one came, except Carol, who dropped off a pasta salad and left before the grill was even lit. I watched the whole thing from Grant's porch. It was like watching someone throw a birthday party for themselves and forget to invite anyone who liked them. Over the next week, Evelyn doubled down. She posted daily videos on her HOA blog, each one more desperate than the last. "What makes a strong community?" she'd ask into the camera, her voice cracking slightly. "Standards, commitment, courage." But courage didn't look like a live stream with 3 viewers and one of them being her tablet. She filmed herself planting flowers, hanging wind chimes, picking up imaginary trash, but it didn't matter. Birchlake had tuned her out. Even her most loyal fans, Carol and Dan, had stopped commenting. The silence was louder than any HOA violation notice. She tried one last thing, proposing a neighborhood watch expansion task force. Angela Moon, now fully in her prime as HOA president, shut it down with a single sentence, "We're watching just fine." It was the diplomatic version of, "Take your cones and go." Evelyn's isolation grew thicker by the day. People stopped waving. Kids stopped riding bikes past her house. Grant swore she was still filming from the upstairs window, even though nobody gave her anything to record anymore. She had turned herself into a myth, a suburban ghost haunting her own reputation. Then came the truck. On a Wednesday morning, a big white moving truck pulled up to her driveway. No announcement, no farewell post, just the quiet panic of someone who finally realized the village wasn't coming around anymore. She had framed her exit online as a bold decision to seek a community that honors rules. But we all knew the truth. Evelyn wasn't moving forward. She was retreating. And not gracefully. She paced around the movers, directing them like a general who'd lost the war but still wanted to choreograph the surrender. Grant and I were on the porch, phones in hand, sipping coffee like we were waiting for a shuttle launch. A few other neighbors stood nearby, pretending to do yard work. Evelyn adjusted her sunglasses, reapplied lipstick, and took a long, dramatic breath as she climbed into her SUV for what she clearly believed would be her final statement. A clean getaway. A dignified exit. The moving truck was already pulling off, which meant she had to reverse carefully out of the narrow driveway. That's when I whispered, "Here comes the encore." She threw it in reverse and began backing out with all the confidence of someone who'd never once hit the right angle. Her SUV swung too wide, clipped her pristine, HOA-approved mailbox, and sent it flying like a kicked garden gnome. The wooden post cracked in half, letters scattered like embarrassed party guests. The rear bumper of her Lexus took a visible dent. Her backup sensors screamed in protest as she slammed the brakes and sat frozen, probably hoping it hadn't just happened. But oh, it had. And it was captured from 6 different angles. I know because I've seen all the footage. Grant called it a masterpiece of poetic justice. I called it closure. Because in that one moment, Evelyn proved what we'd all known from the start. The trash was never in the bin. It had been behind the wheel. I posted a clip later that day, just a simple video, no commentary, no caption, except, "And the bin saga ends with a bang." It got more likes than any HOA post Evelyn had ever made. Comments poured in, laughing emojis, popcorn, gifs, and the occasional karma with a side of reverse. But the best part? Angela shared it too, just posted it quietly, with the caption, "Drive safe, neighbors." The whole neighborhood knew this was the curtain call. No malice, no mockery, just relief. The HOA didn't need a queen. It needed peace. And now? That's exactly what we were about to get. It's funny how quickly a place can change once the noise dies down. 1 month after Evelyn's bumper met its poetic end, Birchlake Gardens felt lighter. Like we'd collectively exhaled after holding our breath for too long. No more caution tape around trash bins, no more live-streamed yogurt cup interrogations, and certainly no more laminated surveillance dossiers in our mailboxes. In place of all that came something better. Potlucks, garden swaps, and block parties that didn't feel like compliance drills. The HOA, under Angela's calm and competent leadership, pivoted from enforcing standards to celebrating them. And for the first time since moving here, I didn't feel like I had to choose between keeping to myself or bracing for impact. Birchlake didn't just settle down, it bloomed. Angela launched the first Yard of the Month contest with zero irony and no hidden agenda. Mrs. Mendoza won it with her dazzling hydrangeas and miniature gnome orchestra. Grant was nominated for Best Porch Presence, mostly because of his thermos collection and habit of waving at every dog that walked by. I got Most Improved Lawn, which came with a $15.00 Home Depot gift card and a plastic trophy shaped like a lawnmower. We laughed, we clapped, and we started talking to each other again, not about violations, but about life. Even Carol showed up to the events now, clearly relieved to be a guest instead of a second-in-command in a regime of fear. Evelyn's name was never mentioned directly, but every time someone placed their trash bin correctly without needing applause, it was like a quiet toast to her absence. Somehow, I'd become an unofficial morale captain. Not because I asked for it, but because people started looking to me when things needed a spark. I suggested a community chili cook-off, and next thing I knew, 20 slow cookers were lined up on Maple Street like military tanks full of cumin. I offered to host a game night and ended up leading a wildly competitive round of HOA Jeopardy. Categories included code violations of Christmas past and trash or treasure. The laughter that night was real. No one was worried about who was watching. The only recording happening was on Grant's camcorder, and he promised to edit out any scenes involving spilt queso. This wasn't just neighborly fun, it was healing, and I think we all knew it. New families moved in, young couple on Birch Lane, retired teacher and her beagle on Crestview. They asked about trash rules, mailbox specs, and I'd always give the same answer: just don't go full Evelyn. It became shorthand, a phrase that said everything without saying too much. Don't make mountains out of mulch. Don't weaponize the handbook. Don't mistake enforcement for leadership. Evelyn had become a cautionary tale, not out of cruelty, but necessity. And I think if she were honest with herself, even she'd understand that. Some people lead with heart, others with highlighters and cones. Birch Lake had finally chosen the former, and thank God. The best part? I found peace without having to move or hide or argue. I didn't have to raise my voice. I just had to outlast the noise and build something better in its place. And in that way, Evelyn was right about one thing. Community does require courage, but not the kind that wears a vest and a clipboard. The kind that shows up with coffee and conversation. The kind that knows when to step in and when to let people breathe. I still see her SUV sometimes in memory, not in motion. And I don't feel anger anymore. Just closure. Because after 6 months of drama, 12 trash collisions, and one magnificent mailbox finale, she finally hit the brakes, and I finally hit peace. And if you enjoyed that ride through suburban chaos and sweet poetic justice, don't forget to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories on the way, because where there's an HOA, there's always another tale worth telling. And if I'm being honest, I didn't just survive Birch Lake. I learned how to live in it. I moved in thinking peace meant quiet. Turns out peace means community, real community. Not the kind built on checklists and citations, but the kind built on trust, humor, and the small courage it takes to knock on a neighbor's door instead of filing a complaint. I didn't win by shouting louder or stooping lower. I won by standing still, letting the noise burn itself out, and choosing kindness with a backbone. And in the end, the neighborhood didn't just get rid of a problem, it found its soul. This story wasn't just about trash bins or power-tripping HOA queens. It was about what happens when control gets confused with care, when a single person, unchecked, can turn a peaceful place into a personal stage. But more importantly, it's about how one person, armed with patience, documentation, and a bit of humor, can help turn that stage back into a community. It's about poetic justice, yes, but it's also about quiet leadership, the kind that doesn't need titles or vests or megaphones. So if you took anything from this saga, let it be this. Don't let fear or foolishness define your neighborhood. Don't let the loudest voice be the only one heard. And when the moment comes to choose between petty retaliation and purposeful action, choose the kind that makes things better for everyone, even if it takes longer, even if it means letting the camera roll and the cones fall where they may. If this story meant something to you, if it made you laugh or think or even just nod quietly in agreement, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment, and tell us your own HOA horror story. We know you've got one. And make sure you subscribe, because we've got plenty more tales of justice, joy, and jaw-dropping reversals coming your way. Around here, the trash may get picked up on Tuesdays, but the stories, they stick around for good.